Story 1. Road number 32 inches, late one chilly night in rural California. Four friends, Mike, Jessica, Tom, and Clara, were driving home after a weekend trip. The clock struck 11 p.m. when they decided to take a shortcut through an old, desolate road named Road Number 32. Before entering the road, they stopped at a rundown gas station to refuel. The gas station attendant, an elderly woman with a piercing gaze, looked at them and warned, "Don't take that road at night." Many people who go down road number 32 never come back. Tom chuckled nervously. "Thanks for the warning, but ghost stories aren't going to scare us." With that, they laughed it off and headed straight for the road. At first, the drive was uneventful. The road was quiet, bordered by towering trees whose branches reached over like skeletal fingers. Jessica tried to lighten the mood by playing music on the radio, but all they got was static. Suddenly, through the static, a distorted voice whispered, "Mike." Jessica froze and quickly turned the radio off. "What was that?" Clara asked from the back seat. "Just a bad signal," Mike replied, though his knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. As they continued deeper into the road, the air became colder and an unnatural fog began to roll in, blanketing the headlights. Without warning, a man appeared in the middle of the road. Mike slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. The man stood completely still, illuminated by the headlights. His face was pale, his clothes tattered, and his eyes lifeless. Mike lowered the window cautiously and called out, "Sir, are you okay? Do you need help?" The man tilted his head, staring blankly at the car. Then, in a low, raspy voice, he said, "You shouldn't have come here." Before Mike could say anything, the man stepped off the road and disappeared into the fog. "That was creepy," Jessica muttered, glancing nervously out of the window. Mike hit the gas, eager to leave the area. But a few minutes later, they saw the same man standing in the road ahead of them, in the exact same position. "Impossible," Clara whispered. "We left him behind." Tom's voice wavered. "Just drive, Mike. Get us out of here." Mike pressed the pedal to the floor, speeding past the man. But now the atmosphere felt even more sinister. The trees seemed to close in on the road, their branches twisting and writhing as if alive. Faint whispers echoed around the car, but no one could make out the words. Suddenly, the car's engine sputtered and died. They were stranded. "Why did the car stop?" Jessica asked, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know," Mike replied, frantically trying to restart it. Then Clara saw her. A woman stood on the side of the road, her long black hair covering her face. She wore a torn white dress, and her body swayed unnaturally, like a puppet on strings. Slowly she began walking toward the car. "Don't move," Tom whispered. The woman stopped a few feet from the driver's side window. Her hand reached out and pressed against the glass, leaving a bloody handprint. Slowly she lifted her head, revealing a face with no eyes, just empty, black sockets. Jessica screamed, and the woman let out a bone-chilling wail. Mike twisted the key, and the car roared back to life. He hit the gas, speeding down the road as the woman's scream faded into the distance. But the nightmare wasn't over. Ahead, the fog thickened, and they saw figures emerging from the trees, dozens of them, all with the same lifeless eyes and pale faces. The figures surrounded the road, their whispers growing louder and louder until it was deafening. "We're trapped," Clara said, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, the car was lifted off the ground as if by some unseen force. The headlights flickered and everything went black. The next morning, locals found the car abandoned on road number 32. There was no trace of the four friends. On the windshield, written in blood, were the words, "Welcome to the road. Story 2. The Cursed Road." In a remote village called Ramnagar, There was an old road on the outskirts known as Black Hollow Road. The villagers believed that the road was cursed. It was said that anyone who walked on it after dark would vanish without a trace. People spoke of strange shadows, whispers in the air, and eerie red lights that lured travelers to their doom. Over the years, many had disappeared, but no one had dared to investigate the road. One winter, 3 college friends, Rahul, Sam, and Priya, decided to spend their holidays in the village, staying at Priya's grandparents' house. On their first evening, they overheard villagers talking about Black Hollow Road. Intrigued, they asked about it. "Don't ever go there," warned an elderly villager. "That road is cursed. Those who wander onto it at night never return." Rahul scoffed. "Cursed roads? Vanishing people? These are just stories to scare people. There's no such thing as curses." Sam, more cautious, said, "Maybe it's better to stay away. What if there's some truth to it?" Priya, ever curious, suggested, "Why don't we check it out? Let's see if there's any mystery to this road." Despite Sam's reluctance, Rahul's confidence and Priya's enthusiasm convinced him. They decided to explore Black Hollow Road the next night. At midnight, the 3 set out with flashlights and phones. The road was silent, surrounded by dense trees and shrouded in thick fog. The cold air carried an unsettling stillness. As they walked, their footsteps echoed unnaturally loud. A few minutes in, they saw an old woman standing under a large twisted tree by the roadside. Her appearance was unsettling, her face wrinkled, her eyes hollow, and her voice hoarse. She raised a crooked finger toward them. "Turn back now," she warned. "This road is not meant for the living." Rahul chuckled nervously. "Thanks for the warning, ma'am, but we'll be fine." The old woman stared at them for a moment, sighed deeply, and whispered, "You've been warned." Then, as mysteriously as she had appeared, she faded into the fog. Sam hesitated. "Guys, maybe we should listen to her." "Don't be ridiculous," Rahul replied. "She's just trying to scare us." They continued walking. As they moved deeper into the road, the fog grew thicker, and an unnatural chill settled over them. Whispers began to echo around them, soft, unintelligible murmurs coming from the trees. Sam clutched his flashlight tightly. "Do you hear that?" Priya whispered. Rahul nodded but said nothing, his earlier bravado fading. Suddenly they noticed footprints on the dirt path ahead, fresh ones that seemed to lead deeper into the road. But when they looked around, there was no one in sight. "What's going on here?" Sam muttered, his voice trembling. Before anyone could respond, Rahul's flashlight flickered and went out. Priya tried to use her phone for light, but her phone wouldn't turn on either. One by one, their devices failed, plunging them into near-complete darkness. The whispers grew louder, almost as if the trees themselves were speaking. Then, from the fog, a shadowy figure emerged. It moved slowly, its form unclear, but its glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness. "Run!" Priya screamed. They turned and ran, but the road seemed endless. No matter how far they went, the fog thickened and the whispers surrounded them. Rahul tripped and fell, scraping his knees, but Sam and Priya pulled him up. As they stumbled forward, they saw the old woman again, standing in the middle of the road. This time she was smiling, a chilling, toothless grin. "You should have listened," she said. "Now it's too late." The ground beneath them began to crack, and the air was filled with a deep, rumbling sound. The road started to crumble, revealing a dark, endless void below. They screamed as the ground gave way, and one by one they fell into the abyss. The next morning, the villagers noticed that the 3 friends were missing. A search party was organized, but all they found were the friends' shoes near the start of Black Hollow Road. No other trace of them remained. The villagers, now more fearful than ever, warned everyone to stay away from the road. The legend of Black Hollow Road grew stronger, and the mystery of what happened to Rahul, Sam and Priya, remained unsolved. But some nights, villagers claimed to hear whispers coming from the road, and a few even reported seeing three shadowy figures wandering in the fog, forever lost on the cursed path. Story -3: The Haunted Bridge. In the small, forgotten town of Ravenwood, there was an old wooden bridge called Blackwater Crossing. It stretched over a dark, sluggish river that locals claimed was bottomless. The bridge had a sinister reputation. Anyone who dared to cross it at night either disappeared or returned, changed. People whispered about ghostly figures, disembodied voices, and shadows that moved when no one was there. For decades, no one in Ravenwood dared to cross the bridge after sundown. But stories like these only fueled the curiosity of thrill-seekers and skeptics. One summer, 3 college friends, Jake, Emma, and Ryan, came to visit the town. They were paranormal enthusiasts, always chasing urban legends for their YouTube channel. When they heard about Blackwater Crossing, they knew they had found their next adventure. "We're doing this," Jake announced, setting up their cameras and equipment. Emma hesitated. "You heard what the locals said. People vanish." "It's just a bridge," Ryan said. "We've done scarier stuff than this." Reluctantly, Emma agreed. At midnight, they grabbed their gear and headed to Blackwater Crossing. The bridge loomed before them, its wooden planks creaking in the night wind. The river below reflected the pale moonlight, its surface disturbingly still. As they stepped onto the bridge, a strange chill ran through the air. Emma held the camera while Jake and Ryan scanned the area with their flashlights. "Look at these carvings," Jake said, pointing to strange symbols etched into the wood. They looked like runes or sigils, ancient and ominous. Emma frowned. "Why would someone carve this here?" Ryan shrugged. "Probably kids messing around." As they moved deeper onto the bridge, the air grew colder. Emma started hearing faint whispers, soft and unintelligible. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Jake paused. "Hear what?" "Whispers," Emma said, her voice shaking. The whispers grew louder, but they weren't coming from any one direction. They surrounded them, echoing in the still night. Suddenly, their flashlight beams began to flicker. "This isn't funny," Ryan said, his voice strained. "No one's laughing," Jake replied, gripping his flashlight tighter. Then they saw it. A figure standing at the far end of the bridge. It was tall and shadowy, with glowing red eyes that pierced the darkness. "Who's there?" Jake called, his voice trembling. The figure didn't move. Instead, it seemed to grow taller, its shadow stretching across the bridge toward them. "Run!" Emma screamed. They turned and sprinted toward the other end of the bridge, but no matter how far they ran, the end never came. The bridge stretched endlessly before them, the planks creaking louder with every step. The whispers grew deafening, and the air felt heavy, as if it were pushing them back. Ryan tripped and fell, his camera skidding across the bridge. Jake and Emma stopped to help him, but when they looked back, the shadowy figure was closer. "It's getting closer," Emma cried. Jake grabbed Ryan's arm and pulled him up. "We have to move." But as they tried to run, the planks beneath their feet began to break apart. One by one, the wooden boards fell into the river below, swallowed by the dark water. The figure was now mere feet away, its glowing eyes fixed on them. Emma clutched her camera tightly, her hands shaking. "What do you want from us?" she screamed. The figure finally spoke, its voice low and guttural. "You came where you don't belong. Now, you stay." Suddenly, the bridge collapsed completely, and they plunged into the cold, black water. The river swallowed them whole, pulling them into its depths. The next morning, the sheriff found their abandoned car near the bridge. Search parties combed the river, but no bodies were ever recovered. Weeks later, a local fisherman claimed to hear voices on the bridge at night, familiar voices calling for help. Others reported seeing 3 shadowy figures wandering the bridge, their eyes glowing faintly red. Blackwater Crossing remained silent, its secrets buried beneath the dark water. But the legend grew stronger. Those who dared to cross the bridge were doomed to become part of its curse, trapped forever in the endless night.